ocean. Rise up and unite. Woo! Rise up.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Layover Live. All the gang's here tonight. I'm here. Lyndsay and Mark are here. Caught you drinking your beer then. Surprised, yeah. You thought I was going to do a long intro and saying, here's Lyndsay and Mark.
Yeah, we thought you'd maybe say a little bit more than that, but yeah, cheers.
Hi. Cheers. Evening. How are we all?
Good. Recovered just about from last week's epic 4-hour sesh.
Oh, gee whiz. You know what? I am exhausted. And I know we laughed about it earlier in the week, Lyndsay, but it was just the work up to that, to the whole pilots together thing. It was amazing. We made a phenomenal amount of money, didn't we? How much did we make in the end?
It was just short of £25,000.
Oh, it was blooming amazing, yeah. But 4 hours was a long time. You did really well hosting it as well. It was amazing. Mark and I actually probably made it more difficult. Yeah, made it more difficult by pressing the buttons, because every time we pressed the buttons, something that nobody planned for actually happened.
I'm not pressing any buttons this evening. I had a proper telling off.
Yeah, it was quite funny because I was about to leave the stream. And I was just about to press the button to leave, and you left. And I thought, well, actually, if I go now, how we go? It's going to be a very quiet 3 hours 50.
Yeah,
but
it was the shortest to what I would call an on-screen domestic that you could have.
yeah, it was the weather forecast was pretty frosty at that moment.
Pretty cool, though. I mean, we made a phenomenal amount of money. There are lots of other initiatives. In fact, I'm wearing one tonight. Look.
Oh, yes.
Buy airline tickets like you bought toilet paper. These can be bought online. A whole host of the profits go to Pilots Together. If anybody wants a T-shirt that has quite a good slogan on it, I think. And they do come in extra fat size, just to let you know. Obviously, this one isn't, but... They do for the larger gentlemen. They do cater for those. Stop it. How? I mean, they were doing some other stuff as well, aren't they, Lyndsay? To make some money. I just want to finish talking about a charity quick. But
there's a chap called Chris Muir who is a friend of Mark's, and he's taken some pictures of the 747 landing into
Dunsfold.
Was it Dunsfold? And they are awesome pictures.
He's a great photographer.
Wow. And
a few people have been sort of contacting him to say, his Twitter has lit up to say, is there the option to purchase these? So I think he's going to team up with Pilots Together, and we're going to find a way to sell the pictures through the charity, and then the proceeds from the pictures will support the charity as well, which is a really nice thing for Chris to do.
What Chris isn't is a really good first aider, because I fell off my mountain bike quite badly with Chris and Lynn, and Chris did nothing. But he's a very, very, very good photographer, and he is hilarious.
You can take the crime scene photos, I suppose.
And actually, that was quite a stressful day, because it was probably 10 days before we were due to go on our ski holiday.
Yeah.
And I came around this corner on the bike, and Mark was just lying in a crumpled heap on the floor.
As I came off, I thought, ski holiday paid for.
Now, there was a lot of teasing when we were on this stream last week, and 4 hours was a very long time. It was 4 hours 20 something in the end, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because we were sponsored by Lidl IT, it just was not quite making the mark for us, but we did manage in the end. Really thankful for everybody who made it happen. But we talked about the 9th of February coming up.
Yeah, what's happening on the 9th? I've got no idea what's happening on the 9th.
And there's a reason for that you don't have any idea, because
we don't have many secrets, but the 9th of February is a secret.
Yeah, and the reason we're not telling you is because you'll blub about that.
Really?
You know you will. You'll give it away. It's so good that people are going to love it. We are going to do something spectacular with Pilots Together on the 9th of February. It's going to be really interesting. It will be live, I think, if we can manage it. And we'll do some awesome giveaways. And there'll be an opportunity for somebody to get something which will be, oh, Lyndsay, I'm almost giving it away. I'm not going to give it away. Time to move on. Lyndsay, what have you...
Can we say why the 9th of February is important, or is that going to give the game away too much?
Oh, I think it'd give it away. Why don't we just move on to talking about why not jumbo jets? Let's talk about the jumbo jet, because I saw an amazing tweet of yours about the BOAC. Tell us about it.
So last flight of the BOAC jumbo. Now this jumbo has a very sort of, it's quite close to me because this was the aircraft that I did my line check for the 747 into LA. I was able to so I was lucky enough to fly all the retro jumbos. Did you fly the 319?
No, not yet.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm hoping to.
So but this one was particularly special because it was for my final line check.
Wow, it is
best, but
It is cool, and I have got a video of it. I mean, Lyndsay, you'll appreciate this as well as I. We've both flown the jumbo for a long time.
Yeah.
The jumbo can stop on a sixpence. People think, this is a big airplane. It needs a massively long runway. We got a short video here of it landing at St. Athan, the final flight of a British Airways jumbo jet. I'm just going to play it because it was just awesome. Cool, isn't it?
51 years.
Awesome.
51 years of British Airways 747 overall types, 100, 200, and 400.
Wow. You know what made me laugh was I was reminiscing yesterday about the jumbo jet because it is, as you know, one of my favorite aircraft. And BOAC, as you say, 51 years ago, April 1970, they brought this into. The first one was delivered to British Airways, but they didn't fly it for a year. Go on, Mark. Any idea why they didn't fly their brand new spanking airplane for a year?
I saw your message earlier. Go on, you say, and because I'm going to tell you about some other stuff that I found out during the retirement of the 757.
All right. Well, I found out that the reason they didn't fly it for a year was that BOAC couldn't get a long-haul pay agreement with the Pilots Union BALPA, so nothing really changes on that front. They literally left the airplane sitting there for a year and didn't fly it. Utterly amazing. Go on. Yeah. What about the 757?
But we found all sorts of stuff in the archive when we were retiring the 75, and one of them was I think I would describe it as incandescent letter from the pilots union at the time that was tied up with some maritime union. I can't remember the details, but they wrote to British Airways management and Boeing to demand that the 757 should be a 3-pilot airplane. To demand that, and it was an absolute demand. There was no doubt about it. There was loads of that stuff. So it was incredible.
Be up there with the bunk dressing and length of sandwiches.
Hey, sandwiches are very important, and length of sandwiches, and people who are listening to this will have zero idea what we're talking about, Lyndsay, but sandwich length is important, and I'll guarantee that's not code for anything. It's actually to do with sandwiches.
There we go. Scott, it was a beautiful landing, I thought.
It was, yeah. Chief training pilot, just to let you know.
Was that nose wheel held up as a kind of active defiance? No, I don't think so. That's a pretty standard derotation, but I think probably the angle's a little bit unusual, so you really notice how long the nose wheel is off the ground. But that's a pretty standard derotation on a jet.
Yeah, I'd also say that you probably hold it a little bit more if you're going to use full reverse, because it can sometimes rear up a little bit, as Lyndsay knows, if you go straight into full reverse. So actually holding it for that extra second and controlling it down so it doesn't rear back up again is entirely normal. If you go, and they definitely used first full reverse there, didn't they? Definitely, 100%.
It was wet, and it's quite a short runway. It's in Athens, is it? 1900 meters or so?
Yeah, for a jumbo, but I guess kind of light, really light.
Right.
Yeah, amazing. Anyway,
it was amazing. Enough about jumbos now, because we've gone way too into that.
Let's go something slightly smaller. Let's go for
something smaller. Still in the Boeing stable, though. Lyndsay, you saw this week. I have to agree, it looks amazing. Tell us the story about this.
Yeah, so this is a photographer called Ryan. Now, Ryan's got he's got a track history of having some really great pictures taken, mostly from a helicopter, some aerial shots. And this captain, it was his last flight, flying out of, I think, Raleigh. And you can just see the first officer sort of waving out the window.
Presumably he's not going, get away,
get away.
But I just thought it just looks like such a cool shot, and to have that for your retirement flight as a kind of memento for the day, I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, I think it is absolutely awesome, and the clarity on the picture is amazing, isn't it?
I mean, they must have one of those sort of lenses that goes the whole width of the helicopter.
Yeah, really good. Yeah. Really.
Or having Jamie Hunter take the photos. Now, we were talking about Jamie Hunter in the green room before we came in. An amazing aviation photographer, and hopefully, if we're good, he'll come and join us on the Christmas party next week. We'll have to see if that happens, but that'll be really cool, and we can look at some of his cool photos. Mark, what have you been looking at on Twitter this week? I know you were talking you talking about snow or something. Is it snow?
Yeah, I love a photo, and I saw some amazing photos from the South Pole. Oh, there we go. Summer's day in the South Pole. That's a Basler, which was a DC-3 once upon a time ago. A couple of turboprop engines, a little bit of a fuselage extension, etc. But it is, of course, I think it's coming up to the 85th anniversary of the DC-3, which is amazing. It's amazing that it is still a viable commercial machine, and indeed the only commercial machine that can do certain jobs. Absolutely incredible thing. And
is there, from a sort of in-service timescale, there's not many? Is there any military aircraft that span 85 years?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I guess the next closest one would be the B-52.
B-52, maybe. Yeah, B-52's up there, isn't it? I mean, it's not as good as this. I mean, some facts. How many do you think were built in total? DC-3s, C-47. So the DC-3 family, how many?
About 17,000.
Oh, you're spot on. I'm very impressed.
Of course it's spot on.
Of course I am.
Yeah. The Av Geek wins again. So here's one then. So Mark and I, Lyndsay, we've been saving up. We're back in the 1936. How much are we going to have to shell out for our DC-3 runaround, do you think?
No idea.
In when they were brand new?
Brand new, 1936.
I think they were something like $15,000 or something like that, weren't they?
No, it was actually really expensive. So they were actually $79,500, which in real money today is about $1.5 million.
Yeah.
So actually, they've depreciated quite a bit, unless you want a Basler conversion one there with these amazing PT6 engines on, because they are pretty cool. I have to admit, yeah, it was just. I mean, what was it? Somebody says, "Oh, tall ships race." Oh, wow.
So I've flown on AMPY, and we landed at Coventry. I was just a passenger in the back, and the first officer was landing it, and he bounced it pretty much down the length of the runway. The poor bloke, and the training captain had a big beard. I have no idea. I'm sure people will know him, but all you could hear during each bounce was the training captain roaring with laughter, and the whole back of the aeroplane was filled with people from the Guild of Air Pilots and Navigators. I mean, there must have been about 1 trillion hours of experience, and this poor bloke was getting laughed at by the training captain. But
never laugh at anyone. Just a couple of things about this, because again, I'm a big DC-3 fan, or C-47. An amazing photo here. When do you think that photo was taken?
Well, it looks like the early hours of the 6th of June, 1944. But you're going to tell me it was a bit. It was a bit more modern than that, because I wasn't around then. It was 2 years ago, actually. I took that photo. Yeah, I was really fortunate enough to go flying in a formation with the guys who came across to do the D-Day thing, and I was very fortunate. That's a picture taken from the very famous That's All Brother C-47, which was the first one to lead the 900 aircraft across on D-Day. Very fortunate to fly in it, and I got a cool video that I'm going to share with you. Awesome, wasn't it? I just had a whole day of fun dragging Mrs. B around, flying in the C-47. She was not impressed, actually. I bet. DC-3 with a third engine in the nose. Never seen one. Me neither, but they were used for all sorts of things, including BEA had one. It was Rolls-Royce, really, with 2 Dart engines. And it just shows how incredibly versatile they were. They were used for absolutely everything. Just amazing bit of kit.
It was. So let's put the DC-3 to bed with a quote from President Eisenhower. Did you know that he said 4 things won in World War II? The bazooka, the Jeep, the atom bomb, and the C-47. So that's good enough for me. It won him the war. Lyndsay, I saw you send me a picture the other day, and you know how much I saw this, Scott,
and I thought of you straight away. Not because of the picture, but
but I thought water, aeroplanes, not mixing. This was not the best view to have if you're the pilot in command of this aeroplane. Tell us the story, Lyndsay.
Well, as you can see, it says what it is on the aircraft. It's a PC-12. It was doing a ferry flight across the Pacific, and it ran into what we could call a spot of bother. So it had some ferry tanks, which were fitted for the flight, and they had a problem with the fuel transfer and resulted in an engine flame out. And they had a few goes at getting it going again, and unfortunately they couldn't. So I think they were about 28,000 feet when this sort of problem first developed. And then they got down to 8,000 feet and committed to ditching. So they had a very successful ditching, as you can see, that, aircraft is intact, landed the right way up. They bobbled around in the sea for a couple of hours. I think a Hercules came and dropped off a raft, and then they bobbled around for another 22 hours before they were finally picked up. And I thought Scott would just not have coped in a dinghy.
22 hours.
Yeah.
I would not have made 22 minutes without throwing my ring. To be fair, though, go on.
The best bit was that they have a warning on board, which comes up as an epic. It reads Ep.6 fail. Now, clearly it is an epic fail, but the Ep.6 is, let me just get this right, it's the engine and propeller electronic control system, which if you read it, it says Ep.6.
So the epic fail light came on just before they ditched the aeroplane.
Yeah.
You couldn't make that up. I wonder if the F-35 has one. We'll have to ask Adam later.
So a few things for me on that. I mean, it looks like they've done I know it's obviously an accident. It's obviously not what they were intending to do. But, to commit to actually a successful ditching high up, that shows really good decision making. The fact that they were so well prepared, you can see they've been out of the overwing and into the raft. I mean, that is unfortunately, that's what people practice for. You can see where they touch down and graze the tail, so they're obviously very nose high. And you see how high the swell is as well. Just the fact that the horizon's only just in front of the
5 to 10 feet, this swell, which I thought that would have done Scott in straight away.
Yeah.
Just looking at that from shore would have done me in. Well, you know my story about crossing Hong Kong Harbour on the Star Ferry, flat calm, and I ended up almost in an ambulance because it was way too much swing for me.
An aircraft carrier around or whatever it was, a destroyer.
Yeah, that was not good. Not good. That was HMS Campbelltown. That was, and that was nothing to do with me. And if the Navy ever send me a bill, I'll deny it. But we can talk about that later. We're now going to move on to a little bit more of a somber part of the show, just before we get Adam on. Sadly, this week, Mark, I know we lost General Yeager, an absolute legend.
An absolute legend. I mean, it's massively overused, the term legend, doesn't it? But I think Chuck Yeager, as most people know him as, he genuinely was a legend, and he was a very forthright individual. He's famously, very right wing, but actually, he's a man of his time. Bear in mind that he was a Second World War fighter pilot, and he finished his career flying F-15s and so on. And so there he is with Glamorous Glennis. So most of his aeroplanes around that time were called Glamorous Glennis or Glamorous Glen, something like that. And Glennis was his wife, his first wife. So maybe he had a kind of softer side.
I note that you've not named the cub after me, but that's fine.
Maybe I should.
Glamorous Lyndsay.
But he's there with the Bell X-1. If you go to the Smithsonian, the one in the mall in Washington, there is the X-1 hanging on the ceiling. When I went there, it was on the floor, and it looked like a home built. If I'm really honest, it just looked incredibly difficult to get in and out of. Apparently, you couldn't bail out of it. So if it went really wrong, the chance of you bailing out was zero. The door's on the side. The next thing that hits you is the wing. The wing was like a razor blade. Anyway, an absolute hero. He flew absolutely everything. But if you want to get a measure of the man, number one, his book is excellent. You can read The Right Stuff by Tom Wolfe, which is it's a good book. I mean, it's somewhat dramatized. But probably the best thing that I listened to was something that Tim Robinson from the Royal Aeronautical Society posted. And it was an interview, I think in 1979 with him. And he came across much more balanced, much more of a test pilot. It was fascinating, absolutely fascinating. But rest in peace, sir. 93.
Yeah, so sad, actually. 2020 has been a bit of a car crash, hasn't it? But sad to see him go. But I know we say, he had a good innings, didn't he? He did a lot in his life, achieved a phenomenal amount. And
absolutely incredible. And you think that the three main test pilots in the X-1, him, Bob Hoover, and Tex Johnson, who rolled the 707 or the
720 as it was, or whatever.
The Dash 80 as it was known. Yeah. Anyway, there we go.
So, moving on to something a little bit more uplifting, we are going to talk about the F-35 in a minute. But before we get to the F-35 thing, Mark, I'm really sorry, buddy, but I'm going to have to address this. Right.
There's nothing wrong with this.
Right. We are going to have to address this. So I know, because we're good friends outside of this,
yes,
I know that you've got some time off coming up, and Lyndsay has been really looking forward to time off.
Yes.
And just about on the cusp of your time off, you invest in the world's pile of British Airways historic legends.
Yesterday.
I think if you look on the when you say invest, so the 707 was 77p.
Yeah, but it's still an investment. That is about 100 hours of investment in time to get these to a reasonable level. You're going on holiday. I know where these are going to go. They're either going to go on eBay or they're going to go in the bin.
I'm getting the visual feedback.
I didn't mean to drop you in it then, but as we are a bit of a distance apart, I thought I might. Right, it was great to catch up, wasn't it? Amazing to catch up. It's been a really busy week, and we started off with the Pilots Together thing last week, and we were all exhausted. And but I'm still feeling it. You can probably see these are actual bags under my eyes. Not really caught up with the sleep yet. And I did my sim this week as well, which was hard work, but passed again. We're going to talk to Adam now. We've met Adam in the green room, but Adam's a former captain, naval aviator. He's flown the Sea Harrier. He was pivotal to the entry of service to the F-35 in the UK. He's now left the service and has the illustrious title of Head of Carrier Strike, which sounds quite cool. Yeah, for Lockheed Martin in the UK. But before we speak to Adam Clink, who is known as Clinky to his friends, we're not his friends, but we'll call him that tonight because we can. And he's miles away and he can't get to us. Before we do that, let's have a look at the metal. Adam, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here. And I've learned a lot from the last 20 minutes, I can tell you.
Really?
Oh, really?
Yeah. About 144 scale.
Well, you're not a sea lover, and the investment in the models, to be honest, Mark, I think you should be ashamed of yourself.
There'll be worth something one day.
No, I only found out when I wasn't a sea lover when I went on a Type 45 frigate HMS Campbelltown.
Yeah, well, old ships, Scottie, because I was on Campbelltown for a while.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, there we go.
I'll tell you, it's
In
never.
Campbelltown, I should say.
Ships never, ever again. But Adam, welcome, Head of Carrier Strike for Lockheed Martin. What does it mean?
Well, it's the title I made up, if I'm honest. No, so I have a background, clearly 26 years of the Navy, mainly around fast jets. And in my latter career, although I should probably fess up really early on that I haven't flown F-35, but I've been around the F-35 program and the carrier program for the latter part of my Navy career. And then Lockheed Martin came along, and I've been with Lockheed for a couple of years now, Lockheed Martin for 2 years. And I just ensure from a UK perspective that, you know, the Navy are getting what they need out of the aeroplane.
Mm. Sounds awesome. I'm going to take you back now. We're going to go on a time warp journey all the way back to your university days. Now, very kindly, you and a couple of others sent me some stuff regarding your career and all these things, and we've looked into that and taken some notes. But this struck me as odd. Now, you went to Swansea University, great university. My boy goes there. He's reading aerospace engineering there. An amazing university on the beach. But you joined the University Air Squadron. So you started off well, joining the RAF. I'll give you that. But it's the time allocation thing here. Now, this is from something that you present, I believe, that said study flying. You've not really got it sorted there, have you?
No. Good use of a pie chart. And may I say there's a third colour there as well? I'd like to know what the third colour was.
Yes, there's a story behind all this. So first of all, I went to Swansea because the other 4 universities I applied for rejected me. But it wasn't a bad choice. And I was an army cadet at school, and I was looking for an officer training corps. Couldn't find one at Swansea in the first sort of Freshers' Week thing, but the University Air Squadron came up, so I applied for it and got in. And the time allocation is pretty accurate because I used to spend Monday and Tuesday at Swansea and Wednesday to Sunday at RAF St Athan. And the other 2 colours there are probably an indication of my ongoing inability to sort of manage an Excel spreadsheet. So that's about it. But I had a fabulous time at Swansea. It is, and I think today is even better. An incredible university, and you know, just the location. I lived on the Mumbles Mile, right next door to a pub called the Pilot Inn, and it was midway through. I don't know if you've been down there and done the Mumbles Mile. Nods.
Yeah, we have. My son's at Bay Campus, which is almost on the beach. I mean, he can see the beach from his window. It's a stunning university, and they've invested so much in it. Invested so much in it recently. Adam, you started off well with the RAF. Why didn't you stay there? What changed your mind? I'm going to push on this now because I really want to understand why.
I wanted to fly. I tell you why. I wanted to join. I always wanted to join the Navy to fly Lynx helicopters, and I wanted to fly on the endurance flight down in the South Atlantic. That was my dream job.
It's funny you should say that, Adam, because one of my very good friends did that for a number of tours, and we're going to get him on and talk about that. He flew the Wasp.
Brilliant.
The Wasp, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I've seen some recent stuff, and I think the whole British Atlantic survey is becoming more and more important now. And in fact, we're looking at it from a company perspective to try and support the C-130 logistics stuff out there. But it's. I mean, I've seen a documentary recently about some of the survey flying that goes on, and it featured, because it had to, the Lynx flight that were down there, and it still today is just an incredible role.
It'd be amazing.
But I didn't do that.
Yeah, how was it?
So
you settled for second place, which was
I went to. So I had a lot of banter from a chap called Ian Draper, squadron leader as he was at the time, who was the boss of the UAS, who was trying to get me to join the Air Force. And actually, I've got a print on the wall here that says, "Hope to see you in uniform one day," signed Ian Draper, because he knew I wasn't going to join the Air Force, but he thought I was probably going to join the Navy. So I had a year out. I sold water filters, and then decided that was a crap idea, and joined the Navy. And the rest is, as they say, history.
So what age were you when you joined the Navy?
23. January 93 I joined, so I just turned 23. And I think from what I now know, that's too late, and particularly today, we need youngsters to join. We need 18, 19-year-old school leavers who are ready for a challenging career, because I think the other thing that's happened in society, perhaps, and the forces recognise this, is that you need people who are probably not going to now hang around for a 30, 40-year career. They're going to want to dip in for 6, 12 years and then go off and do something else. So getting guys and girls in nice and early is the way to go.
How old were you in that picture, Adam, if you don't mind me asking?
So I am probably about 28, I think, in that picture. I'm the one on the left, by the way. The other two guys, so Neil Bing is in the middle. Neil Bing is a bit of a legend, and another Sea Harrier guy went GR7, GR9, and then he, I think, is still now he's now, so this will be good for you, Scottie. He is now, I think, wing commander Bing, or squadron leader Bing, or even he might be flight lieutenant Bing, as a reservist at Wittering, teaching. He's a QFI, teaching guys to fly Grob.
See, it all comes around in the end. They all realise where the best place to be is.
He goes sliding down the snake to the bottom of the ladder.
He's probably a flying officer, knowing Bing Bong. But the guy on the right, I shared a cabin with on that deployment which was about 9 months long, is Chris Gotka, who is a legend, and some of the people watching this will know Chris because he's been a stalwart of the Royal Navy historic flight for about the last 6-7 years. So he successfully saved the Sea Fury at Culdrose, if you remember that one, landing wheels up. He's a brilliant pilot, and but and Chris wouldn't mind me telling you, he's also dyslexic. So where I lacked in pilot aptitude and he helped me out, I helped him with report writing. So we had a great time. But that was the three of us. The other guy I should mention is Jamie Harms, who's still now working for Ascent, who was the fourth guy on our student Sea Harrier course, who joined 801 Squadron. so we don't mention him.
The enemy. It's
Yeah.
really
And
interesting, isn't it?
a course is 4 people, is it? Was it?
Yeah, it was then. I mean, this was probably the first course. If you think back to when the Sea Harrier basically destroyed the OCU because they all went off to the Falklands.
The OCU is the
the Officer Operational Conversion Unit. So
Yeah.
once you finish flying Hawks,
Yeah.
and it had been pretty much decimated by the Falklands and still recovering. And they also had the transition from the Sea Harrier, what was called the FRS-1, to the FA-2, which was the jet you saw in that picture, that one.
So the FRS-1 had a little pointy nose on it and looked
It
a bit
did.
more old Harrier-like.
Yeah, Blue
this
Fox
is the
radar.
FRS-2.
And this one is the Blue Vixen major upgrade with AMRAAM that made it probably one of, and people may question this, but one of the most capable air-to-air fighters in the world. If it wasn't, if the radar behind it didn't have a sort of flying brick in terms of aviation performance, but it was just absolutely superb air defense platform. Brilliant.
So great radar, great weapon.
Yeah.
Interesting
Brilliant
airplane.
operators.
Yeah. Obviously.
You were going to say, yeah.
Yeah, I was just coming on to that bit.
Yeah.
I just for the watchers and listeners, just to explain briefly the difference between how the Harrier gets used in the Air Force and how the Harrier gets used in the Navy, because I'm not sure everybody gets that. So the contemporary of the FRS-2 initially would have been the GR7, I think, or GR5 and GR7.
5 probably.
And then on
5,
to the
7,
9.
9. Yeah. So we used to embark alongside a squadron of Air Force Harriers, and I dearly remember the time on board when 800 Squadron had 8 jets. No, we had 9 jets and 8 pilots, and I think one squadron came on board with 8 jets and 16 pilots. So we were pretty busy as a bunch of pilots running around trying to run our squadron. But actually, and our boss was a lieutenant commander, so the equivalent of a squadron leader. And the boss, of course, of the Harrier squadron was a wing commander. And what's important here is to mention cheese, because when you dine on a naval aircraft carrier, Royal Navy aircraft carrier, you generally go in. We always used to go in to eat as a squadron at 7:30. And we'd all eat together as a big group of pilots and the engineer officers and the fighter controllers. We'd all go into together to eat. And that would be the same pretty much for the Air Force squadron. They're slightly bigger numbers, so they sort of split themselves up a bit. But the boss of the squadron, who was a wing commander, went to eat with the ship's heads of division, who were commanders. And the difference was they got cheese at the end of the meal and we didn't.
Right.
And that
And
was,
is that the only difference between the GR5 and the
so cheese is one thing. Cheese is one thing that's different. No, the Sea Harrier was absolutely attuned for air defense.
Yeah.
So radar, and we worked really closely with 849 Squadron on the SCASAC force, who were an airborne early warning helicopter, seeking airborne early warning helicopter. So we were defending the carrier strike group and then being pushed out further ahead of the carrier strike group to defend the threat. And in the Gulf, we would go up threat of where the Harriers would be bombing to be able to push off any sort of air threat from them. So we were air defense in that role. And the GR7 that became the GR9 that I flew later on was superbly set up to do ground attack and to do close air support, but didn't have an air-to-air radar. So all of the focus was on the ground with initially a tiled pod, a thermal imaging and laser designation pod, and later on a sniper pod. But all focused on looking after and supporting troops on the ground.
So in short, FRS-2 fires at things in the air, defends the carrier group. The GRs fire at things on the ground.
Yeah, but I should also, and I'm slightly biased. There was when the Harrier forces joined together into something called Joint Force Harrier. We had a bombing competition, that was hosted by
I
Cottesmore.
can see where this is going. I know where this is going already.
I know where this is going as well, and it's not going to be pretty.
No, and I think there was an issue with the barrow-plane in the Harrier that they had to sort of fix it and go fly over a pond or a puddle or something to get an accurate height fix. The FA2 at the time had an upgrade, so we'd had a ring laser gyro GPS fitted, and the squadron that won that bombing competition, and forgive me, I can't remember the year, it should be ingrained in my memory, was a Sea Harrier squadron, and I think that was the last time it was held.
Yes. Yeah, let's draw a line under that competition.
Yeah.
Well, we don't win
days.
anymore. Done.
No, great force to work on, and at the sort of tactical level, I know there was a lot going on in our seniors' lives at the time, but at the tactical level, great relationships, which are now sort of all coming through the senior ranks now that were built at that time.
Yeah.
Sounds amazing, Adam.
brotherhood.
As they say, how do you know you're a Harrier pilot? Well, actually, you don't need to know. He'll tell you. But I've got this on a slide here that says Captain Lightning. Now, I know that's probably not what you were after, but it does sound pretty cool. That was on this slide here. There you are with your full finery. You were on an RAF station. You were Deputy Force Commander for the Lightning Force. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah. So, Captain Lightning again. I've told you already. I make up job titles for myself, but that was pretty much
That's
what
a good
was.
one. That's a really good one. Superhero one.
So the Lightning Force headquarters was based at RAF Marham, and there's been a whole load of investment into Marham. So if anyone watching has served at Marham or been to Marham, go back again and just have a peep over the 2-foot fence that protects the base, and you'll see over £500 million worth of investment in that base, and working collaboratively with industry and with the station commander and a great mate of mine, Ian Townsend, Cab Townsend, another ex Harrier pilot who you should get on this program because he'll give you a dit or two as well. We basically, I joined that job, and in fact I took over from Cab as the Deputy Force Commander, and he became the station commander. So there was good continuity, and we basically set about making the base ready and suitable to accommodate the new jets as they came back to the UK. So we had pilots, maintainers since about 2015 working with the US Marine Corps at Marine Corps Air Station Beaufort in South Carolina. And they had therefore become pretty competent in operations of the aeroplane. But what they needed, and we used to go out to Beaufort a lot, and it was a pristine base. From anything from the officers' quarters that you stayed in, the lads' quarters that you stayed in, to the way that the squadron was accommodated, and the way the whole thing was set up. And this is a special access program. So there were high security fences all the way around the squadron building, partly for security, partly to keep out the alligators that were close by in the lake. But absolutely, focused on the mission like the US are always, to deliver F-35 operations. And the Marine Corps had an earlier introduction to service date than the UK did. But nonetheless, UK learned an awful lot from that experience. And we had to do that because we made decisions that I was involved in back in 2010 that meant we were going to deliver the frontline squadron first before we delivered a training outfit. So we had to train somewhere. So that's how it all came about. And the jets were due back in the summer of 2018. Mm-hmm. You'll remember 2018 was quite a big year for the Royal Air Force. It was their 100th anniversary. And we always knew it was going to happen. But the question came in saying, wouldn't it be nice to have some F-35s flying down the Mall for the 100th anniversary? And that sort of led a 3-4 month lead time, to bring that forward to get the jets back in April. So it was all hands to the pump against an infrastructure program that was woefully late. So interesting time to be there, and great to get them in.
So Adam, sort of enormous challenges to just so you start with the buildings and the people and the kit to support it, because we're a bunch of pilots on this program and many of our listeners are sort of aeroplane heads, but it's nothing without all the stuff.
Yeah, and by God, there's a lot of stuff that goes with this jet. So there's if bringing a civil airliner, I would imagine, because I'm out of my swim lane now, doesn't have the same security arrangements around it, because you're going to pile it with civilians and fly at places. So safety is the number one issue, as it is in any aviation, but safety number one, and then getting the efficiency through. But security, and whether that's cyber security, physical security, making sure that every person on the base has been vetted and secured, and then the RAF police were walking the ground while the contractors were laying the foundations for these buildings to make sure they were done in accordance with the security regulations for the airplane. So really intricate issues with the building.
So what, in case someone laid something in, like put some wires in or something like that?
Yeah, and anything that would allow you to gain access to the more secure elements of this aeroplane.
Wow.
Which would have obvious sort of connotations. So major concrete structures within the buildings had to be put in around the full mission simulators, and anywhere that you were going to talk at a sort of secret level about the aircraft itself on any of the buildings around Marham. So yeah, a major program. Eventually delivered. The Queen opened the building in February 2018, which was the operational building. In fact, I've still got the sign. It's pretty heavy, but one of the things they gave
the sign.
I nicked it. Yeah.
So hang on a minute. We're just talking about security.
What I have earlier.
Oh my God!
Secure.
No, that is
extremely secure.
No, so the thing is, actually, I should throw it over again, because what you'll notice on this sign is that we were so confident about when it was opened, we didn't put the date on the sign.
Oh yeah, very good.
February.
Sometime in February.
So there was a second one delivered with the exact date the Queen opened it, and actually, I was given that as one of my leaving presents from when I left.
Yeah. Before I grass you up to the RAF police, Lyndsay's got some questions she wants to ask about Nokia handsets. But before we come to that, a bit more F-35. Wow. Lyndsay, take us to the world of Nokia handsets.
Have you got that little slide there, Scott? So, Adam, is that a GR7, Harrier GR7 on the left?
Yeah, GR7, GR9.
And you've compared that to what, an old Nokia? I think I had one of those actually when I might have been at school.
Good battery life.
I can't believe that. I can't believe that, Lyndsay.
And then you've got the F-35, and you sort of akin that to a modern iPhone.
Yeah, so I think this is an analogy that's often been used about these two jets, that Nokia had. You could make a phone call, you could probably play snakes on it, you could do a few bits and bobs that you'll remember, obviously, because you claim to have had one, but you look too young.
Thanks.
But you could, in terms of upgrading it, you probably had to ditch the phone. You wouldn't get a software upgrade very often, and when you had your Nokia delivered, that was what you'd get, and that was it. So the capability of the phone was in your hand, and to upgrade it was a major event. What we're looking at, and the aspiration with F-35 all along, has been a platform that, yes, is a physical platform. The sensors and the way the sensors are fused, i.e. in the way that they talk to each other before they present the picture to the pilot, And that's very different as well, because in a Harrier GR9, you would be presented with several different displays that you would have to piece together in your own head as the pilot about what they really meant to you in terms of a sort of tactical environment. And what the F-35 does is take all those sensors. It uses its algorithms and apps, if you like, that a phone would use, pieces them all together and gives you a tactical display. And there's the office that you would see. Presents a tactical display to the pilot that the aircraft feels is the most relevant at that time, and therefore you're taking some of that challenge away and giving the pilot the best opportunity to perform at their best. And also what that display is doing is data linking with perhaps another 3 aircraft in the formation.
Okay.
So it's also using a data link to feed in the best information across those guys. So while you're running cold, so while you're turned your radar down threat, and because we used to operate in a sort of what's called a rotating combat air patrol. So you stay in the same place in the sky, and you keep turning as a 4-ship, 2 looking up threat, 2 looking down, and rotate. Sorry, that's the international sign for a rotating cap.
For those of you watching in black and white, that's 2 little fingers.
Yeah. While you're
on
you're
the podcast, it's not great for the podcast. That really.
While you're down threat, you're still seeing the whole picture. So you're sharing that display, and of course, as we progress, what companies like Lockheed Martin that I now work for are trying to do is make sure that picture is being shared across the multi-domain network. So someone in the land environment is seeing the same thing, someone on the maritime environment is seeing the same thing, and you're really fusing that pictures together. So all of those defense images that you see in the Sunday papers and you've seen on PowerPoint slides forever, if you've been in the military, where magic bits of electric string, join everything together, are really starting to come to life now.
So can I just sort of try and summarize, because I'm a civilian idiot, and I taken a long while to get my head around this. So for me, it was just one vertical takeoff and landing-ish jet has been replaced by another slightly curious looking one, but actually it's way more than that. This is a low observability machine. It can fly relatively undetected into a battle space, suck in information from other machinery, spurt information out when it's got its sensors running, and so on. Whereas in the Harrier, if your sensor, namely your radar, was off, that was it, or your only sensor are your eyeballs.
Correct. So, and I'd take you back to the conversation we had about why did you need 2 different types of Harrier? One to do air defense, one to do ground attack. What you've now got is a single aircraft, still with a single pilot, that is doing all of those roles. So it's got a radar, it's got all the ground attack weapons. They are, those weapons are held within internal weapon bays, because the other key feature of the F-35 is its low observability. So it's got a very, very small radar cross-section, unlike the Harrier that was, like a flying break. You'd see it coming from miles. So with a carrier now, an F-35, you have the capability within one aircraft to conduct several multi-role missions and gain access to airspace that more and more is becoming contested and difficult to enter because of the air defense systems that our adversaries are developing and continuing to proliferate around the world. So it's not just China and Russia, although those are our biggest threats, but we all know that those countries sell them around the globe. So you could see those sort of threats everywhere. So this is the first time, really, I think, that the UK have been back in the game with a really serious, credible combat air capability that also happens to be carrier capable. So you can push it around the globe. Typical sort of what the Prime Minister would want to do, time and place if you're choosing. You don't need to have access to a base or invitation from a land-based territory to go and operate it close to the threat. You can just go and use it. And I think it's really powerful. And this jet is going to be being sold already around the globe. And when I say they data link between a 4-ship, and that's just UK. We're already seeing, and you may have seen it in the autumn. We had a squadron of US Marine Corps F-35Bs on board the carrier, and you can data link to them as well.
Wow.
So you've got this massive capability now across NATO forces that is really credible and will just grow in maturity over the next 5, 10, 15 years, and it's going to be here for a while.
Sorry. Go on.
And Adam, as the technology improves, is the hope that the actual hardware will stay the same, but it will be the software and the computer systems on board that will be that's the bit that will advance?
Yeah. So it is on the whole. However, we all know that, and a bit like the Nokia to iPhone analogy, every now and again you need a tech refresh. So what the program tries to do is limit those processor refreshes, but when you do a really smart one. So you really bump up the computing power of the aircraft, and then incrementally you improve the software, which increases the capability, and that capability is voted on by all the partner nations. So the UK get a say in what they want to see, and that could be from weapon capability to safety to training capability, all across the board that gets put into those software uploads.
And Adam, I just kind of loop our viewers back to Matt Dearden, who flew Bush airplanes in Indonesia, and I kind of reminded everybody that these things are there to do a job. So for many of us, we're airplane enthusiasts, but actually these things are there to do a job, and the F-35 is there to do a job. The people on board are there to do a job. It needs to be. The Harrier was tough to fly, I think, by all accounts. It took a bit of thinking about to actually just keep the thing airborne. The F-35, it seems, is meant to be easier to fly, but it sounds like you've got plenty of other very complicated kit that you really need to get your head around and manage. Is that a fair summary?
I think it is, Mark. I think you often hear, well, of course, probably from old duffers like me, of course, the old Harrier was much harder and F-35 is easier to fly. But I think you're placing very different demands on the individual in the cockpit. And I think we've probably seen over time, and this has been the subject of many sort of training debates and QY courses, qualified weapon instructor courses, I should say, over time about what is it we need to do to change the training infrastructure to make this more relevant, so we're not back in the old fighter pilot series of old. Yes, yeah.
Or doing what happened in previous generations, where you're training the current generation to fight the previous war or to do the previous job.
Yeah. And I think that to a degree that's always a challenge, and it's often touted that the UK focused too much on the sort of Afghanistan style war and not focus on this. But I think now that you've got Typhoon and F-35 both as single seat multi-role fighters that need to work collaboratively, because overall, if there's one message, that the overall UK combat air mass of aircraft, i.e. the numbers that we've got, are way too small at the moment, and we need to increase that. And then there's great steps in training. So I think on the slide now is the Prefect aircraft, which when I think back to the Bulldog that I started training in, what a step change this is. A really quite powerful aeroplane, glass cockpit, and quite a challenging aircraft to fly. And I think the step change between this aeroplane and Hawk is being reduced all the time. In the middle now, you've got, rather than Tucano that's gone out of service, you've got the Texan T6. Again, all part of the military flying training system network for fast jet training going through, and is really now coming of age and really starting to deliver a completely different and more relevant and appropriate training for a fast jet operator. So, and it's probably a good time to say that there are no two-seat F-35s, and I, we probably all know that, but it's probably lost on some people. So you don't get a chance to go and have a go in the front seat while someone's saving your neck in the back in this thing. You have about 10 sorties in the simulator, and then you get let loose in a £100 million aeroplane.
Wow.
So the training has got to be good.
That's it. I mean, there's nothing else.
Typhoons, is that right?
No.
So because I believe they're ditching all the 2-seat Typhoons, is that right? But for the same reason.
I think they will. Yeah, I think they will. Mainly, I mean, I think probably part of life expiry as well as necessity. Right. But yeah, I mean, there's been some studies on the Typhoon force to take somebody all the way through. In fact, there's been a study that took pilot all the way through to being declared combat ready in the simulator. So these are the sort of things that the Air Force are looking at, which is more akin to the civil sector, I guess, because you guys do so much flying in the sim.
But as an instructor, I would that would be the same as
flight time,
command
maybe?
upgrade. So everything all the way to a commander.
Yeah.
In a simulator, and I find even now, and as a proponent of the simulated environment and so on, I find that difficult to believe. But maybe I'm getting old.
Well, I do, but maybe I'm getting old too.
To speak now. Yeah.
I think there's
all we can.
There's that certain experience that you just get out of pure airmanship.
Yeah.
The time the radio crackles, or you don't quite hear the voice on the other end. There's so many other examples you could give, and anyone who's flown could give that just says you've got to have some time airborne. So F-35 is built on a 50-50 live synthetic balance.
Okay.
So you'll spend half your life in the sim, half in the aircraft, and I think that's probably about right for now. I guess as we get to understand the aircraft, and we mature Typhoon, and undoubtedly there's some money to be saved here as well, because everybody's budgets are tight, and probably more so after COVID. You've got to look at ways to train efficiently and well. And actually, I would say that as simulators for the military training environment become more relevant and mature, actually some of the training you want to do has to be done in the simulator, because you don't want to give away your tactics in a live environment, because there's always somebody watching and listening either in space or from any other sort of asset that could be watching what you're up to. So there is that as well. But yeah,
and I'm keen to point out to people that that a simulator is a training device, and the objective is to expose people to a particular set of circumstances so that they can develop their competencies to address that circumstance when it comes along. Now, of course, that circumstance may be difficult or impossible to generate in real life. So there's this important balance that has to be struck.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This is an amazing photo, by the way.
It is amazing. So I was just about to come on to this photo. I want to take you all the way back now, because we're getting to the end of this, which Adam's probably quite happy about, because we could have geek out all night about F-35 and Typhoon and Harrier, but we are coming to the end. And what I want to take you back, Adam, is you said actually at the beginning of the interview, you'd spent, I think, 8 months on board a carrier, which is a really long time. I mean, you're married. An amazing picture here of the F-35. I know you don't go on the carriers anymore, but what was it like for you and your wonderful wife here when you had to go away for that length of time? How tough is it? I mean, from a human point of view.
So I must confess, my 8 or 9 monther was prior to that picture being taken.
Oh, lucky.
So we met while I was deployed, after I got back from the 8 monther. So we had that funny sort of. In fact, I met Emma because we had a blind date on return from that deployment, because she was a friend of my senior pilot's girlfriend. So there we go. Oh. Blind dates do work. And then I was deployed again on board, and part of the reason I don't think I've said in the sort of open forum, I nearly joined BA in 2008 because she was so fed up of looking after 3 kids while I was in Afghanistan for 4 months at a time, a couple of times. So it does take its toll, and I think it's when you say what was it like, for me, brilliant, because I'm doing my professional job. I'm with fellow colleagues who I work with all the time, respect, feel like a family to me, and it's a great life away. For Emma and my kids, it's very tough, and I think that's the bit we need to support. She also happens to be an educational psychologist, so she's right into the whole heart of what this means for my family's psychology development and all the rest of it. So we've had a bit of a ride on it being separated, and I think it's been much tougher on her and for anyone who's away. The families at home have a much tougher ride than I think the guys deployed do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I and having been deployed myself in the Air Force, the better of the three services, I can wholeheartedly empathise with that. But it is all about people, and I know that
Actually,
this program.
Sharon said she was
happy for me to go more.
Yeah.
I know.
She wrote to the Chief of the Air Staff and said, "Could you make sure Scott goes away more?
Keep him." Yeah, but actually, to go back,
the Chief of the Air Staff's best friend at the moment is the First Sea Lord, so you better be careful.
Anything to do with water, not me. But to go back to the people thing, I know that this program has taken a phenomenal amount of time. Adam, you've been in it from almost the beginning there. 2 years, a lot of people, a lot of time. We've got a video to end off with in a minute or two, which actually focuses on the people. And I think it's really important to say this isn't just all about a piece of metal and a couple of pilots flying it around and having an amazing time. There's a phenomenal team of people who support that one individual getting into that cockpit and making this all happen as a fighting machine, if we call it that, a fighting system. I mean, it's an amazing team, I think, and I think this video sums it up. But before we go to the video, Adam, thank you so much for coming on. It's been really insightful, actually. Good banter, and I know that you really wanted to stay with the Air Force, and that's why you came back to us in the end.
Oh,
never.
Adam, thank you very much. We've got about 150 other questions that we wanted to ask you. So.
We have, and we just haven't managed to. I'm really sorry, but we can maybe get you back on and talk about.
I'll join for your Christmas do, and I do want to buy airline tickets like you bought toilet paper T-shirt, please.
Pilot M's, I'll send you the link.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
we'll send you the link, and it would be great if you could come on for the Christmas do next week. We'd love it.
Yeah,
we'll speak to you soon, Adam. Thanks so much, and despite the banter, I really appreciated it, and it's been great talking with you.
Thanks, Scotty. And just before I go, that the point you made about people, I couldn't agree with more. And I know the video you're about to show. The two characters in it are very close personal friends of mine. And they put it much better than I could. So there we go.
Adam, cheers.
Thanks a lot.
This trial has been the focus of our lives, so many people's lives for the last 2 years. It's not all about the 8 weeks on board. In fact, it's mostly about the 2 years that led up to this.
The proudest moment that I'll look back to is thinking of the people. All the people within the F-35 ITF, such fiercely intelligent people working so hard, so dedicated to the cause of making this air vehicle the best in the world, which it is. But then also the people who built this carrier, and then more importantly, the people who actually live on board the carrier. This is a floating city, and it's the people on board right now that are making this happen. And those people won't change over 50 years. That's the defining moment of now.
The total professionalism, the total dogged determination, and the utter sacrifice that people have made in order to get to the point where we can fly on board this ship and absolutely knock it out of the park. That is what I will remember. Satisfaction lies in the effort, not in the attainment. And full effort is full victory. And we're going to walk off this ship knowing that we put in full effort. And that's why we'll walk off this ship feeling fully victorious.
Wow.
Stunning.
Full effort is full victory. What a way to end the F-35. Well, I've really enjoyed it. It was amazing. Coming up next week, what have we got, Lyndsay? What are we doing next week?
Oh, are we having a party?
I think we are, because I think Adam might have just given it away that we're having a Christmas party next week.
Yeah,
Yeah, we are. Lots of different people coming on next week.
is there a dress code?
Oh, yeah, Christmas jumpers.
Please tell me that Scott's going to be dressed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know I am definitely going to be dressed. Christmas jumpers is the foray. Or if everybody wants to buy airline tickets like you bought toilet roll t-shirts, then please do. We'll stick the link in the bottom of the YouTube video, and we'll tweet it out later on Twitter. At Pilot M's is selling those, and send some stuff. What are your plans for the coming week? Have you got any plans before we shoot? Dog walking.
Yeah.
Mark, anything big this week?
I've got
You're
a
on leave.
huge board meeting and then 4 days of leave.
Sweet work.
I'm just gonna hand the baby and the dog, and I'm just gonna leave. I'm gonna take.
You know what I'm looking forward to next week? Seeing Mark's finished models. Can't wait for it. It's gonna be amazing.
Ambitious.
Hey
Right.
guys, great to see you again. Next week, same time.
night.
Should we do it same time next week? Yeah. Okay. Cheers. Bye everyone.